Hello and welcome to Charlatans Uncovered. I'm Rebecca Toms.
And I'm Max Whitehead.
And we're here to talk about adultery, treachery, and trickery. And today on the show, we have Julia Hartley Moore, who is a private investigator, over 20 years experience.
Wow. Julia's got quite a reputation, isn't she? She's known all right through the media. So this could be exciting.
Yes, exactly. And we're keen to find out what's been going on in her world lately. And I've got a first question for you. What prompts people to call you about suspected infidelity?
Usually intuition, gut instinct, changes in behavior, something like that. It's pretty much that's what it is.
Is there a gender sort of a bias on this? Is there more males call you or more females, or is it sort of mixed?
It's actually pretty mixed. Obviously they have different. You usually find when a woman calls, it's in the very early stages of something because they are more in tune to their intuition, if you like. I see you smiling there, but
well, I think you did right about that. They pick things up that us males don't even know about.
It's true. That's true. What happens with men is we find usually it's been going on for quite some time, and then all of a sudden they think, oh, that's odd. You know, like I'll give you a really classic example of how it usually starts for a guy is they may have had a feeling because they've seen changes in her behavior, but it's over a period of time. So they may do a little snoop around the house, and men snoop as well, and they'll find lingerie and they think, oh, that's odd. I've not seen this. This is new.
I thought the telltale these days would be the telephone. You know, get the cell phone and then go through it, and you'll find all sorts of things.
Well, you see, often when people plan to deceive, they change PIN numbers and they keep their phones very, very close. So those are the changes of behavior that I talk about too, that do alert people.
Are there any other signs, like more subtle signs that people could look out for?
Well, I think when you know your partner, it's when you notice a change, like in behavior, whether it's all of a sudden they become really protective of that cell phone, or if you notice that they've started sort of going out at odd hours, maybe, you know, or the gym might become more important. But it's whatever is normal to your partner, then you see something else change, or they speak about somebody a lot. And they may even talk about that person in a disparaging way, but that's trying to throw you off the scent, but they still can't help because they're thinking of that person all the time. So they can't help talking about them.
Yeah. So when you're suspected your partner their behavior is changing, you're getting your gut instinct happening, how can you get the truth out of them? I know this is a hard, tough question, without them throwing you off the scent.
Well, don't ask them.
Yeah, call Julia.
Well, don't ask them, because the minute you start asking, look, it's like any investigation. If you really don't kind of know the answer, don't really ask it. If you just surmise, you know, are you having an affair? Are you doing this and that? They're going to say no. Right? So you need to get that evidence first. If you've got a suspicion, and 99% of the time, my clients are right with their intuition, gut instinct, whatever you want to call it. All I do is verify it. Well, I don't personally, but my guys do. That's what you do. You need that evidence, because the average person, and men more so than women, if you remember back in the day, old Bill Clinton, I deny until there was DNA evidence, and then, you know, it only happened once. That's pretty much how it goes.
I did not have sexual relations of that
woman. That's right.
Can we ask you some of your techniques, or is that intellectual property of yours?
Well,
how would you find out?
Well, it's surveillance. I mean, like I've been doing this for nearly 30 years, and back in the day, it was actually me doing it. But for the last 20, I guess I've got a team of investigators that do. So with all this technology, with everything, we still have to work within the Privacy Act. So you will find the best possible tool is surveillance, because that is the investigator's eyes on the job, and where we can, we take photographs. So, and if people are stupid enough to have sex in car parks, which they do regularly, then they're going to get caught.
Well, I've got this little camera here, which I put it outside and put food out, and I get hedgehogs and things. But it would be ideal for you, rather than sitting in your car at someone's address like 24/7. You could.
Oh no, we use cameras when we can. Obviously, we have all of those. Oh yes, we can. But again, it has to be done in a lawful way. So where an investigator is always a lawful way. Surveillance by a PI, a licensed PI is always fine.
As a male, this really is intriguing. But do you set honey traps for guys to fall into to capture them in the act?
No, because you know what? I've been asked that 1,000 times, and say for example, and this is what I feel it's entrapment, because you think a guy could be at a low point, whatever, he's had a few drinks, he's in a bar, and if someone approaches him, it's not that he was out there looking for it. If someone approaches him, I don't think that's fair. I just think that's entrapment. So we don't.
One of my questions for you, Julia, was: do you think the majority of men are vulnerable to be lured? And I think you just said yes.
I think in the right circumstances they can be, but look, I mean, let's be fair. I only deal with people that are lured. And.
Well, not necessarily lured. They're probably setting honey traps themselves and going out.
Yeah. Well, I'm married, so I know not all men play around. So that's the fact of it.
That fixed that one, because that was another question. Do you think all men are playing around? Because look, I deal with employment law, and I start to look at people and think, well, everyone's a baddie, in the employment world, whereas they're not. There's some really decent employers and employees out there. But I've thought about you. I thought you must be looking at everybody and going, I guarantee he's up to no good. She's up to no good.
It's interesting because people say, oh, gosh, she must be a man-hater, that Hartley Moore. She must be, doing that kind of job.
Oh, it did cross my mind, yeah.
And I think, well, hang on, here's the thing. I've been married 4 times, right? And if I was a man-hater, I'd have stopped at the first.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I'm the opposite. No, I am I'm an optimist. And I know that all men do not play around, but just as many. But you know what? The thing is, women play around as much as men, and women are far better at it and far more calculating and cunning and get away with it far more than men do.
I think there's some truth in that.
Yeah. My next question was like, what type of person, is there a personality type that do have affairs? Is there a theme that you see that comes across?
No, look, honestly, it's some of the most unlikely people, photographs of people come across our desks and you think, really? So it's anyone, everyone. There's no specific type. No.
What about, I know that porn's more available these days compared to, because, I come from that yesteryear when the only porn you could get was from Playboy magazines. So what do you think that's added to it? Do you think your the luredness of relationships and people wandering off, or is it more often in this generation than it was in the last?
No, honestly, the average age of our clients is probably 50, goes up to 80. And so the old 80-year-olds are out there having a wonderful time.
You're kidding me. That is true, isn't it? I heard it most times. They're getting up to it all the time.
Yeah. No, honestly, it's we get a lot of, say, 30 plus, but then they will be in relationships. But it as the older you get, I'm afraid, the worse it becomes.
My dad, I didn't believe him. He said, Max, in that room is where sex happens. And I thought, oh, Dad, he's losing it. He was in his 90s. And maybe he was right. This is in the rest home.
Yeah.
And
No,
there's there's high cases of STIs because of it.
That's exactly right. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I don't know if you can talk about it, but maybe you can without identifying anyone. What's the most shocking case that you've come across?
Oh, look, it's hard to say because I mean, every day for me is like a mini series. You know, I could write a mini series just on cases alone. And because, you know, I do kind of tend to work for the middle upper income bracket, and the more money you have, the more availability you have to play, and extravagantly, because you can travel. So, I mean, my investigators, we just do not work in this country. They're traveling all over the world. We've got very high-end people we're watching that employ hookers at 10,000 US a day.
Wow.
You know, to go on the trip with them. I mean, we've followed people overseas where we have literally just by fluke been sat next to them in the plane. So you've got the husband, his PA, who he's gone away with, and my investigator are sitting in the same row. You know, and how about that? But by the time he got to the end of the flight, he said, hey, I might as well turn around and come home because I've got everything you need.
Wow.
Hey, do your investigators, you pick a gender more? Do you have more women or more men, or is it
pretty much predominantly men? Because women get notice taken of them. People take notice perhaps of women, especially on their own. So I have, and most of my team are British, ex special forces or ex anti-terrorism. I employ some high-powered chaps because their training is so much more advanced than we kind of have here. So yeah, I've got an exclusive team I've had for a long time.
So I would imagine. Do you mind if I go next?
Okay.
So I was imagining. It's like watching the crime series. The detective normally has to adopt the brain of a criminal to work out what they're doing. So do you find that your investigators do that? They can think like someone who's about to, you know, do something untoward, but they've already thought it through.
Well, they are boys for a start, so their brain kind of is geared that way a little bit. But yeah,
late to that.
But you know what? The thing is, you're dead right. We actually have to think like someone who would do bad stuff all the time. We can't. The times we've said, you know, I hear my clients saying, but I'd never do this, I'd never do that. And that's right. The average person wouldn't. But these people aren't you. They are someone who thinks, I want it now. I just want what I want, and I want it when I want. So it's that attitude where they don't care, they don't have any respect, they no regard for anyone's feelings. So you have to adopt that same attitude and think, okay, but you can never preempt, you can never presume, you just, because you'll get it wrong. So, you know.
Yeah. And what are the typical behaviors that people take on when they're conducting an affair?
Well, usually, look, it's like I say, it's that whole change of behavior thing. For women, the first thing they usually do is buy lingerie. And it's like I say, it's stuff that the husband never gets to see. For men, it's often this, all of a sudden, it is this taking pride in their appearance, perhaps more. You know, hitting the gym more than they used to. And it seems to me, because for guys especially, it'll be extending work hours a bit. If it's a boss, it's going to be doing the same, but staying back at the office because they can have the privacy in their office when everyone's gone. Yeah, it's just, look, it's really just noticing subtle differences, but here's the thing, don't be looking for them. Because, you know, with intuition, it's going to be something that you start becoming concerned about. you'll try and justify it. And if it won't go away, it keeps coming back into your mind all the time, then you know there's something there. But I can say this, when someone's not playing around, you don't have any of those feelings at all. I mean, that's the difference. I've been with someone who played around and I became very conscious of it, knowing something was wrong. I'm now 16 years married to someone who doesn't play around, and it's not even in my orbit. You know, it's not something you never think about.
Yeah. Well, how do you protect a marriage then?
You don't. With relationships come risks. And,
trust, doesn't it?
Pardon?
Relationships is about trust, and once you've lost it, it's gone forever.
Well, I say trust is like virginity. Once you've lost it, it's gone. You know, so, and that is the thing. This is the hard thing that, and this is what the problem is with, because most of my clients stay in these marriages, and then, you know, employ us again 2 years later, 10 years later. That's the tragedy of this. And then they find themselves in their 60s, and finally he leaves for someone else, you know. So
it sounds like the battered woman syndrome, you know, like they can't leave the partner because for some reason their self-esteem and everything is gone. So they got to hang in there because that's the only person who loves them occasionally, or when they find the time. And then so they hang in there, and it seems to be almost what happens. You must lose a lot of yourself once you find your partner is out deceiving you.
Well, I think what happens too a lot with my clients, as well as, is the social standing, is the stigma attached to divorce, who's going to pay for the kids' tuition. I had one client who was going to get millions. I mean millions of millions, not millions of millions, but millions in a divorce settlement. And the one thing she said to me was, how will I travel? And I'm thinking, well, you're going to have more than enough money for the rest of your life, you know. So a lot of her self-worth was her husband and what other people thought of her. Not, you know, it was that perception, which I think is such a sad thing, that you worry about what people think.
I often think about the Auckland mayor that played around, and his wife. I mean, how is she still with him today, I believe? And so, you know, what you must imagine the humiliation that poor woman must go through, and everyone looks at her with pity, which is probably not what she wants. It must be absolutely terrible for her.
It's sad, because you think that it's a sad thing when a woman has to feel she needs to stay, because I don't think staying for the children is that. I think that's more of an excuse, because children pick up on you know, issues, problems in a marriage. And look, children are incredibly resilient. So if there's a separation and they're young, they're going to get over, they'll be fine, as long as you're fine. So if you're not fine, you're actually passing all that angst onto your children. I think women need to, I mean, I was on my own raising my children when I had all my children by the time I was 16. I had 3. So I was raising them on my own, I think, when I was 20. Wow. But I wasn't going to stay in a marriage where my husband had played around. That was just you know, and I think that's the mistake women make, is staying for the wrong reasons.
And men too.
Oh, totally, and men. And I mean, men do, because a lot of that, they just can't, their ego sometimes doesn't allow them to believe that this has happened, that they can accept it. They find that hard, whereas women don't have that quite as much.
Here's a tricky question is, what if your husband goes out, gets drunk, and kisses another woman? Does that end a marriage?
No, I think if it goes on, it's interesting you say that, because we were doing a case just at Christmas time, actually, and it was a Christmas party, and the husband had been having an affair. He told his wife that the woman wasn't at the party. She wasn't going to be there. No partners were going to be there. But anyway, she was there. And he and this woman came outside of this building and were kissing on the footpath. So we were able to take a picture, because that's okay. They're in a public place. then he was on the phone. So he walked up the footpath. He was on the phone. And I knew very well he was talking to his wife because he walked away from the other woman. My investigator's relaying all this to me. And then he goes back, he hangs up, and then he goes back and he's kissing the woman again. And I tell the wife that, and she said, but what kind of kiss was it? And I'm thinking, well, at this point, does it matter what kind of kiss it was? Because he's told you she wasn't even there, you know? But I think if someone kisses somebody, if they're drunk, there's an element of excuse, right? But I would be, even so, you know, it depends on what's led up to that, you know.
And Julia, it's you've got your boundaries, and that's where you've just stipulated. And I think I would be the same. I would be sort of forgiving if it was a bit of a naughty little kiss at a party and it was a bit lingering, you know, I would probably forgive it. But if it was something more than that, well, then possibly, you know, or perhaps a sharing of phone numbers after that, well, then I would be getting concerned.
That's right. That's that. Yeah, exactly.
But it depends on the individual, doesn't it? Some people have more tolerance than others.
I think what people need to do, I don't think enough emphasis is put into when you get married, what are your boundaries? You know, where do you draw that line in the sand? Because for a lot of my clients, they say to me, but how can you get into the hotel room or wherever it's happening and see what's going on? And I have to say to them, well, that's where you've got to have a line in the sand that says, if he goes into this hotel with someone and they're there all night, do you think they're having a cup of tea? You know, you've got to really think about this, right? Is that acceptable? Do you feel because you're not going to we can't burst into rooms like they did back, you know, many years ago. You can't do things like that. So you've got to look at more likely than not, you know, and plus the fact, has he told you he's in a hotel room and there's someone else is with him, you know? So often I say to my clients, don't tell your husband or your wife what you know about what we've got. Ask them what they did. And if they say, I was with so-and-so and we did this, and I say to you, no, here's the pictures that show this, then you know, then you've got to make that decision. Is that okay with you or not?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, definitely facts, evidence really proves to you that it is happening, and people do go into denial, don't they?
Exactly. I mean, we hear that a lot. Are you sure your investigators are looking at the right person? You know, yes. You know, it's this whole thing. They've asked us to go do it. They already know what's really going on, but when we're actually telling them the truth, they don't want to know it. You know, that's just human nature.
Yeah,
it is human nature, and I see it in my little world as well, but not as dramatic as you. But it's really interesting about relationships, isn't it? Because it means everything to us, and trust being violated is a complete breach of all it. And of course, lying is your point you made before. Do it once, you're going to do it again. So you lie once and get caught, you're going to get your trust is definitely going to.
And you know, Max, I think the thing with people, I think the thing where there is hope for marriages. So say if you're at the Christmas party and you have a few drinks and you do something daft, you know, but you go home and you fess up and you say, look, I really crossed the line. I did this, whatever. I'm going to go and get myself sorted. I'm going to go and have some counseling or do whatever it takes to show you that I mean business here. Then you have a chance of that relationship working. But I'm afraid what we see are the Bill Clintons of this world. I did not. Oh, well, it only happened once.
Man, did he get caught. My God.
The affairs, do they happen mainly in the workplace, or is it just general?
Yeah.
That's a good question, because they usually, when someone's married, they happen during the day. Because a lot of my clients will say, look, I don't know whether I've got this right because my husband or my wife is always home at nighttime. They don't go out. And I said, well, that's probably because the other person is married as well. And they can't get out either. You know, so most affairs are conducted during the day. If they're not, you'll usually find that the person they're having the affair with is single, or their partner travels. So they are free in the evening. But pretty much they're daytime. And then work is a huge place. I mean, that is where most relationships start.
That's the key. Yeah, you think so? Yeah, I'd probably. Yeah,
They start at work, or some of the worst ones start with a guy hiring a hooker, and then he gets silly and he takes her home because the wife's away somewhere overseas. So he takes her home, and she sees where he lives, and she thinks, "Wow, this is all right," you know.
Piece of that action. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And then so she pulls out all the stops. He then feels that he's in a relationship. He forgets that he's paying her, and that's the only reason she's doing this. But he's showing her too much, he's being too open with her, and bang, she wants to infiltrate that relationship. She wants to be that wife. Those are some of the worst cases that we've had, is prostitutes becoming, obsessed in their goal to be the wife.
Well, actually, I wouldn't mind betting that a lot of prostitutes go into the game hoping to find that person, that that gold mine for them for the rest of their lives.
I think you find a lot of them have a lot of issues. They have. Look, I mean, I don't knock them at all, but I just think that what we find, they usually have some kind of problem somewhere, and it's all they know. It's something that they just know works. It's rife. It's rife, but yeah, it's one of those things that's been around since the beginning of time, and it'll never go away. So,
Julia, you wouldn't believe how interesting this is. It's really intriguing what you say. Your world is, I mean, the general public, I think, are very curious to know what goes on behind the scenes and what you know. So this has been a really interesting discussion.
Yeah. Yes.
Would you come back?
Oh no, I'd be fine. I'd be fine to come back. That's not a problem at all. I tell you, the one thing I do find, though, because New Zealand's quite a small place, when I drive around or I see someone somewhere, I think, gosh, why do I know that face? Because of the amount of time I've been doing this, the amount of photographs I have seen, and it's kind of, you don't know where to look anymore.
You know too much. Yep.
Yeah.
Every politician probably dodges you when you come down the road, huh?
I think a lot of people, especially when I did that program, that private investigator program, I could remember I used to say, when I did public speaking, I used to say that I could clear the aisles of a supermarket simply by being there. Because honestly, you see the look on their faces. And I've been overseas and someone's come up to me and said, are you following me?
Rebecca, you got something to say?
Yeah.
You two not sort of knowing each other beforehand on a professional basis, have you?
I have called Julia once, actually.
Oh.
Yeah, there's a friend of mine. We suspected her husband. We didn't go all the way because she went into denial and pulled away, but her gut instincts was actually right.
Right, yeah. Well, that's very normal, though. A lot of people will ring me, and then months will go by because they ring and they think, "Oh my God, I've overreacted. I won't take it any further." They feel bad, they feel guilty, and then 6 months down the track, they're back again.
Yeah.
How do people get hold of you?
Google me. I'm everywhere.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it, and we can't wait to have you back.
I reckon. I want to. You wait for the next set of questions. It's going to be really interesting.
Okay, that's fine. My pleasure.
All right.